Hello and welcome to the mill. I am your host Dusty Crane, and this week we get to talk about the modular board. Now, it's not any kind of, oh hey, I have a copy and I'm going to show it off to you. It's nothing like that, but Jamey pretty much on Wednesday revealed almost everything we could possibly want to know about this thing except for the price, which we'll have to wait for, but we know based on the website, what we've known, I want to say leak. It wasn't a leak. It was something that somebody got a hold of it, and some of the rest of us who were familiar with the product didn't know that the information was coming out, and so there was a moment of panic, but it wasn't a leak. It was Jamey had posted the pictures up on the Stonemaier website that, like I said, pretty much told us everything we need to know about what this is. So what we do know is it is a double-sided board, and it is 4 modular tiles with art on both sides. The board itself is double-sided. I'm going to address some of the frequently asked questions that have come up, but let's go ahead and start with the pictures that showed up after Wednesday's live stream. This first one, and I'll put that right there, is we see some punch board and some new structure bonus tiles. Along with home bases still all in their punch board. The second picture here is the new modular board with the 4 tiles kind of laying beside it, and the home bases are just kind of laying underneath the board. The third one is the new modular board all set up, and the home bases have been placed, and you can see that everything's just kind of all over the place where you wouldn't necessarily expect it, which is pretty cool. The fourth is, I'm going to assume it's the retail package. Jamey has mentioned that it will not be in a box. This picture seems to show that it's shrink wrapped, and so I'm going to guess that this is the retail packaging. So with that out of the way, I mentioned that we know it's a double-sided board that is double-sided tiles. But the question is the art on both sides the same or different? I'm going to go ahead and say that they're different on each side, and here's why. The website says that both the board and the tiles are double-sided to maximize variability. Now, it's not to maximize usefulness in the case that it gets wore out or anything like that, variability. So I'm going to say based on that, based on the fact that on BGG and on the Facebook forums, Jamey and his social media guy extraordinaire, Josh Ward, has shared that it's different art on each side. And I went ahead and did a little investigating myself and found that in looking at some of these tiles that were in the punch board, if you look at the way that it was lined up, it showed this one right here. It shows oil and village and then a lake. And in this other picture here where we see the board all set up, we don't see that combination anywhere. So when you couple that along with the fact that Josh had mentioned that sometimes when you're setting things up that there could be a placement that isn't legal or wouldn't work for the setup, that you just flip over that tile. I mean, if it was the same on the other side, it would still be a legal placement, right? So I'm going to say we have different art on each side. We have a different art on each board. Whether or not the placement of those tiles is different, we don't know. We do know that, Jamey and Josh had mentioned that if you can not use all the tiles to kind of tighten up the play area. And so we got that going for us too in terms of variability. We don't have to use all 4 tiles if we don't want, which should really tighten up the game. So another question that has popped up several times is, how big is the board? Is it the extended map? Is it, does it work with the play mat that went out? And the answer is it's a whole new board. It is not, it's not the enlarged size, it's the standard size. So it's if you want to say small hexes, then that's what it is. People have asked whether or not there's any, if there's going to be an extended board and if there's going to be a new playmat. And Jamey has answered there are no plans presently. So I think this modular board is probably going to be it. But let's see what else. One of the questions that came up was, is the board recessed to allow those tiles to, kind of fall into place so the whole thing is level? And well, Jamey did acknowledge that would be super cool, and it would be super cool. This is just a flat board and the tiles sit on top of it. So no, there's no recessing. That would have increased the cost pretty significantly. Let's see here. As I mentioned, you can remove tiles. I don't know if you can remove more than just one tile, if you can remove two. It'd probably be crazy if you could remove three, but maybe that's something that when the rule book is actually released, we'll know more about. We do know that they'll be drafting of factions. Now, I don't know if that is how that draft is done or what that involves, but there is a draft in place. So maybe you end up with Roosevelt and in a really advantageous position, or maybe you end up with Nordic in a position where your workers don't even have to swim, and your faction is kind of their ability doesn't necessarily line up, and I guess that's going to be up to us to decide if that is a positive or a negative. But let's go ahead and take a closer look at least some of these pictures. The first one where I mentioned the punch board and new structure bonus tiles. We have, and I'm going to just peek off to the side here because I grabbed those images, but I did not have them in front of me. We have some new structure bonus tiles, and we have stuff like, it's not terribly, I guess, out of the ordinary. Now we have like buildings on villages, or building on encounter spaces, or building next to iron and forest, or building around a lake. So building in a diamond pattern. So we have some formations that it looks like it lines right along with the game. And I have no doubt that when these new tile placements are in place, like this is going to look pretty radically different. And as I mentioned, one of the things that had come up was, well, you could end up drafting a faction or a board that is not advantageous the way you might be used to a particular faction having an advantage. What if you end up with Roosevelt, but you don't have any iron and oil right nearby? Or what if you end up with one of those lightning quick factions that can move all over the place, and they're not locked into a little area without their riverwalk right out the gate. So there are people that will say that this breaks the balance, and for that reason they don't like it. But I think for me, what I really like in terms of, I guess, strategy is if we are legitimately looking at this as a strategy game and not just programmed movement. And what I mean by that is there are some people that are like, my first turn I'm going to do this, I'm going to produce. My second turn I am going to trade and gather these resources and do this thing here. They kind of know what they're doing turn 1, turn 2, turn 3. And this modular board really shakes it up. I think you're finally going to see people that are good at the game of Scythe from a strategy perspective, and not just a perspective of they've memorized that maybe this board and this faction in this area, performs well under these circumstances. And so for these reasons, I am really excited about the modular board. I mean, especially if you can remove, even if you just removed one tile and you knocked like a quarter of that playable real estate out. We hear all the time about Scythe is, it's good if you're playing 5 players or 4 players. You want the board kind of crowded, so you really have to think about whether or not you want to, move into this territory to gain that benefit. Well, when you play at lower player counts, and I know this to be true, that like when my son and I play, we can be completely across the map from each other, and we don't necessarily have to meet up unless we decide to compete for the factory. Otherwise, we can kind of do our own thing and maybe only, bump into each other when it's like, well, I'm just going to do a combat to get my last combat star. something like that. And so I really like the idea that maybe you can remove one or more tiles and make that board that much tighter, and so that even in a 2-player game, there could be a lot of that same confrontation and, should I go here? Do I take that chance? Or not. And so, we've seen kind of the BGG 2-player board that was out there at one point. I don't know if I have an image readily available of that. If so, I'll toss it up there. If not, just know that it was basically, imagine just cutting the board in half, and they just resized the power track and the popularity track, and everything was scaled properly except for those hexes were dramatically reduced. You still had rivers. It was really well done, but I like the idea that the board that I play this game is going to be completely different than the board I play the next game. Somebody in the comments on the modular board had done some math, and they were talking about, I think they said a potential for like 730 some combination if the board is double-sided and the 4 tiles are double-sided. That is a ton of different combinations. Now, I know Josh had mentioned that some of those placements result in illegal placement, but even if you cut that in half and had like 300, I don't know, we'll just say it was 700, 350, 350 different combinations. That diversity and that difference makes a difference. And I think we are going to see people that legitimately are good at Scythe and good maybe just at strategy games in general, because you can't just remember a move set, that you actually have to say, okay, so based on what I have in front of me, based on the resources I have available, based on where I can river walk out of my area, or if you still have Tagawa and Albion that didn't have any lakes that were locking them into a territory. What if it's a different faction that does, or what if Albion and Tagawa are landlocked? So, how do I make the most of what I have? Now, maybe somebody starts at a better position than you do. I don't think it's fair to say, well, that unbalances it. I think what it does is just makes you have to think differently. I guess maybe also, I just trying to imagine how this draft could go. Like, I don't know if maybe you are used to playing Nordic. Let's say you're a great Nordic player, and now you're looking at Nordic's position on the board, and you're like, no, I don't feel like I can do as well with this. I don't know if you can move Nordic somewhere else on the board, or if you just have to say, I'm not going to play with Nordic this game. I'm going to go ahead and pay some coins, or however the draft goes. I'm going to go ahead and do this, and I guess I'm going to try and play Saxony this time. However that works out, I think it presents a different opportunity to see Scythe in a whole new way. And so for that, I am super excited. I'm curious, based on these pictures that have popped up, what has got you excited? Are you excited about these new building bonus, or these structure building bonus tiles? I butchered that, whatever. What has you the most excited? Is this something that I saw some people say, well, if it's a small board, I'm out. I guess another thing that came up that I could have mentioned earlier was somebody asked, does it fit in the legendary box? And Jamey said, yeah, it's the same size as the standard board, so it'll fit in there. Now, if you are one of those people that has the legendary box and the broken token insert and has their board and their extended board in there, it's a tight fit. So I have to imagine if you put everything in there, there will be some lift. So if you're one of those people that's going to bother, maybe take the Scythe board out for a little while and put that somewhere else, and give that modular board a chance. Before I go, the pre-order window, and of course I put my laptop right on top of it, but the pre-order is going to start May 29th, I believe. Yes, May 29th, and it's running through June 1st. Now, I feel like I need to say this because inevitably it comes up every time there's a Stonemaier pre-order. You do not need to be a Stonemaier champion to pre-order. It gives you other perks. You're supporting Jamey and the stuff he creates. If you're in the US, it's free shipping. If you're international, it's discounted shipping. But you do not need to be a Stonemaier champion to pre-order. So if the modular board looks good to you, but you aren't interested in, being a champion, you don't have to be. It's mustache problems. If you are not a Stonemaier champion, then you can still be a part of that pre-order. You can still get your order in. The champion pre-order ship first, and then the regular ones, but you'll still get it well in advance of retail. For those of you curious, there will be some at conventions. Jamey mentioned that MeepleSource will have some at Gen Con. So, yeah, that's all I have for you this week. I would love to know what has you excited about this modular board. If you didn't see something you were expecting, if there's anything you're hoping that we're just waiting to be announced, I would love to hear it, because as it stands, we are at the end of an era. This is the last Scythe product that Jamey has any plans for. We know that there'll be reprints of the Metal Mechs in the holiday season, but it's not a new product. We're not looking at any more promo cards, no more expansions, no more accessories. This is it. So, yeah. What's next? What is going to be the next hot Stonemaier product besides Wingspan? Or maybe Wingspan is like, no, it took the place of Scythe for me. But what are you hoping, I guess, to see post-Scythe? It feels weird to say that. Scythe is still my favorite Stonemaier game. I love the other games, but Scythe is still it for me. So it's a little bittersweet. It's sad to be talking about the end of an era, but here we are. But man, if it is truly, Jamey likes to say never, but if this is truly it for Scythe, man, did they ever go out strong with the Rise of Fenris really handing over the keys to the kingdom with all the modules and allowing you to play Scythe the way you want to say, and then this modular board presenting all this variability on how the map is set up. You couldn't ask for any more as a fan of Scythe. And so, man, it's been a good run. Certainly. That's all I have for you this week. I hope to see you in the comments. Like, subscribe if you haven't already. If you enjoy what we're doing here, tell someone about it. Tell someone about the modular board. That's all I have for you this week. I really appreciate you guys. Take care of each other, and I'll see you next week. Bye.